to do a little reading excerpt here from UnarianWisdom.com, a little basic overview into Tartaria, the hidden empire for your average everyday newbie. So it's by David Vanderpeer, of course, off Unarian Wisdom. So what is Tartaria? Tartaria, originally pronounced Tartaria without the first R, is the name of the pre-Mongolian empire that originated in northern Asia before spanning the entire northern hemisphere. Great Tartaria was the largest empire during its time and would still have been the largest empire today. The Tartarian Empire flourished due in part of the civilization being a leader in advanced technology, free energy, and grand architecture. Tartaria is also where the Greek word Tartarus originated from. The denotation of lost souls spending eternity in Tartarus, the underworld, is due to the Tartarian Empire having been buried and wiped out during the mud flood. The world of the Tartarians is literally the world under our world, the underworld. Tartarus wasn't the underworld and will never be the underworld. Tartaria is the underworld. The religionists used the mud flood, deluge, and how it wiped out the Tartarian Empire to confuse the populace into thinking they would join those in the underworld if they challenged their religious authority. Who were the Tartarians? The Tartarians, or Tartars, were the indigenous people quite possibly founded by Noah's sons, making up the world-renowned Tartarian Empire. The Tartarians were a tall people averaging some 8 to 12 feet in height. They would have been considered giants at our current average height of only around 6 feet. However, back then the height of 10 feet was the average, like the civilizations before them whose heights averaged 12 feet, 50 feet, 2 miles, etc. Each preceding civilization had an average taller height than the civilizations coming after them, and each succeeding civilization had an average shorter height than the civilizations predating them. Statures are diminishing after each deluge with each astrological age we enter. Civilizations in the current astrological age, the age of Pisces, are shorter in height than the civilizations that existed in the previous astrological age, the age of Aries, and will be taller in height than civilizations that will exist in the next astrological age, the age of Aquarius. The Tartarians are thought to have been Breatharians, a being who does not rely on the digestion and burning of calories from food and water, but instead rather receives energy straight from the ether. The ether is thought to be the very fabric of the space-time continuum that some would associate with electrons, the wind, the Holy Spirit, the atmosphere, and the gases in the atmosphere such as oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. Since the Tartarians quite possibly had a completely altered digestive system than the ones we have now, they had no need for toilets in their bathrooms, which could hint at one of the reasons why bathrooms in the recent past have been used quite extensively as social gathering powder rooms to not only freshen oneself up, but to hear and spread local gossip. The Tartarians were masters of masonry, brickwork, steampunk-style technology, universally free energy, and grand architecture. Their Roman Gothic-esque style architecture can still be found in the current guise as water ducts, city halls, banks, water stations, cathedrals, churches, hospitals, and similar public and city work-type buildings. What is the mud flood? The epic mud flood is a term that is coined to the event which occurred only a few hundred years ago during the end of the reign of the Tartarian Empire. Buildings hundreds of years old and located all across the world are known to be encased in a mud flow up to several stories high, and in some cases even completely engulf buildings entirely in nothing but mud. You can find buildings that have an age of only a few hundred years old and find them to be buried in mud. The windows and doors of the upper floors of buildings are quite often to be at ground level and occasionally even found to be completely buried underneath the surface of the mud that covered the entire area. Tartarian free energy. Churches, cathedrals, mosques, and other buildings of worship were originally etheric power stations, water stations, and sound-resonating acoustical healing centers. The buildings that religionists used as places of worship in our present day originally functioned as hospitals or healing centers during the reign of the Tartarian Empire. Tartarian buildings are more similar in function to pyramids and temples found across the world than what we are led to believe by mainstream peer-reviewed science. Through ingenious engineering, intricate architecture, and advanced technology, the Tartarians transformed the earth into a circuit board powered by the ether, just like the ancients did with the pyramids and temples. The crosses on top of Tartarian buildings were used as etheric electrical antennas which were connected to the rebar embedded throughout the building structure. Streetlights that existed during the reign of the Tartarian Empire were tall etheric electrical antennas. These streetlights harnessed the power of the ether which caused the gases inside the upper bulb to ionize and fluoresce. For all we know, the upper bulbs that sat on top of the Tartarian streetlights and found inside the homes of the Tartars themselves were not made from glass, but quite possibly from a type of quartz crystal. If the pop cultural phenomena started by the Radium Girls are any indication, then these bulbs could have contained various substances such as mercury or radium, which reacted with the ether, or maybe the bulbs contained nothing at all and the quartz crystal itself is what reacted with the ether. How did the first fireplaces and chimneys function? The design. The Tartarian fireplaces were as ornamentally grand as the buildings that they resided in. These fireplaces were used as a type of bragging rights by revealing the intricate architecture of the homeowner's taste to visiting guests and relatives. Contrary to how we use fireplaces today, fireplaces themselves were not engineered to burn anything. Chimneys were not used to route smoke from the fireplace to the outside of the home, and rebar in the structure of the home was not primarily used to provide any structural support. The rebar in the home was connected to the roof-top tower dome, which was quite possibly filled with various substances such as mercury, radium, or quartz crystal. In the metal pole sticking out of the top and side of the building, all of this metal was then connected to the metal back plating found inside the original Tartarian fireplaces and chimneys. Like the crosses found on top of churches, cathedrals, and mosques, the metal poles sticking out of the top and sides of homes and other Tartarian buildings acted as etheric electrical antennas which harnessed the power of the ether and focused that free energy into the chimney. Air ventilation shafts or air ducts found throughout the home's rooms were connected to the chimney. The rebar rooftop tower dome and metal poles sticking out of the sides of the home acted as a spider web, attracting the ether and concentrating the etheric energy all throughout the home. Similar to how spiders are able to grow and survive without food and water so long as they are touching the web, the Tartarians were able to grow and survive without food and water so long as they stayed inside of their etheric energized home. Tartarian fireplaces and chimneys functioned as etheric electrical vacuum or ionized central air units. Tartarian fireplaces and chimneys were pressurized electrical vacuums which acted as an air circulation unit inside of the home. The chimney itself was the vacuum chamber where everything took place. During the winter, the homeowner would close the upper portion of the chimney that connected the rebar from the home, focus the frictional heat from the rebar under stress from the structure into the chimney by the way of the metal backplate. The ornamentally grand metallic sculptings, typically found decorating the outer perimeter of the Tartarian fireplaces, acted as capacitors by storing the built-up etheric energy collected by the roof-top tower dome and top and side metal poles sticking out of the house. These metal sculptings were connected to the metal backplate found inside of the fireplace and up and down the chimney. Along with the metal backplate, these metal sculptings were etheric electrically charged due in part to being connected to the metal backplate, which in turn was connected to the building's rebar, while the rebar was connected to the rooftop tower dome and metal poles sticking out of the top and sides of the building, which were used as antennas to help attract the universal energy of the ether itself. The fireplace's metal sculptings helped to radiate structural and tension heat from the rebar and metal backplate into the room where the fireplace was located. Since the heat could not escape up through the chimney, the heat would then be forced to radiate through the chimney itself. The heat would then be forced to radiate into the ventilation air ducts, which were connected to the inside of the chimney. The heat would travel inside of the ventilation air ducts and heat the rooms where the air ducts opened up to. The rest of the heat trapped inside of the chimney would radiate out of the fireplace itself and with the help of the fireplace's metal sculptings, heat the room it was in. The heat output, this type of central air circulation system, which would be dependent on the amount of rebar in the house, the amount of tensional stress applied to the rebar, whether or not the house had a tower dome, and metal poles on the outside that were connected to the rebar inside the size of the chimney, the size of the metal backplate, the size of the fireplace, and the size of the fireplace's metal sculptings. During the summer, the homeowner would open the upper portion of the chimney. The fireplace would act as a pressurized vacuum powered by the etheric electricity and suck the heat out of the rooms and in the house by the way of the air ventilation ducts in the fireplace itself. The frictional heat that connected rebar was under due to the tensional stress from the house would begin to radiate up and out of the chimney. In short, Tartarian fireplaces were not designed to burn anything. The metal backplating found inside of the rebar, upper tower dome, and outside metal poles which concentrated the power of the ether and focused the free energy onto the metal backplate inside of the chimney, which ionized the air inside of the chimney. This ionized air, coupled with the rising and falling of hot and cold air currents, created a pressurized electric vacuum inside of the chimney. During the winter, chimneys acted as a pressurized electric vacuum, radiating trapped heat inside of the chimney out through the fireplace metal sculptings and air ventilation ducts connected to the inside of the chimney. During the summer, the process would reverse and the fireplace and air ventilation ducts would suck into the fireplace. I'll start with part 2 for this website soon.